the road to parenthood looks different for everyone. For those of us who cannot have a traditional family, the aim here is to strengthen this resolve against society's expectations. We're known as the worst club with the best members. Well, I'm blessed to have found my tribe. You're listening to Mothers in Arms. I'm your host, Leslie Lopez. This is episode number 20, in conversation with yet marriage and family therapy founder, Anna Hornbostel. I met Anna through our volunteer hours at Resolve, which is the National Infertility Association. They are all about inspiring us to stand up and advocate for ourselves and each other while being supported by community. She certainly inspired me, fighting for others like us who struggle and need the financial assistance of medical insurance or grants to realize their families. Here we go, friends. Let's get into this. Thank you, Anna, so much for making the time to be here with us today. It's such an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always fun to talk to somebody else who understands this journey, right?
And before we get into all the things that your business is about, I was reading on your bio that you love to make chocolate chip cookies as well as ensaimada cookies.
I do. So ensaimada is a Filipino sweetbread. So it's actually a roll that's like really sweet dough with 12 egg yolks in the dough.
Stop. Oh my God. I was trying to figure out what that was. I'd never heard of it before.
And then you put a little frosting on top, just a smidge, and then shredded cheese. It is so good. They take 5 or 6 hours, so it is definitely a special occasion.
Wow. Yeah. Special 5 hours to make. And so it's like sweet and savory. My God.
Yeah.
What?
They're my dad's favorite.
You founded your business, Yet Marriage and Family Therapy. Am I saying that right? Yet?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is
in this journey, right? In these spaces that we find ourselves in when we're on unexpected journeys, we might say, oh, it hasn't happened yet. Right? So we use it in that way of just the not yet. The other way that we use it, though, is that we'll say this happened yet. And that resilience piece.
Yes.
So that little tiny word that came up again and again and again in my journey, and then in so many other journeys that I've been fortunate and blessed to go alongside, has just been a little word that, it's like the little word that could. It
very cool.
Stuck around. So that is where
your business, you use TBRI. It's an attachment-based trauma-informed intervention that it's designed to help children with their various complex needs using neuroscience and sensory processing. Am I getting it right?
Yeah. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And within a lot of that training, I really found myself drawn to the attachment lens, which is basically studying our early connections and how those then form how we continue to build relationships. They kind of make a map for it. And what's really cool about TBRI is that it comes in as a caregiver model. So I train other therapists, I train parents. It can come in and kind of help where those maybe early attachments got disrupted. Sometimes it's via trauma, sometimes birth trauma, sometimes adoption, foster care, abuse, neglect. Right. TBRI, using kind of what we know about the brain and what we know about how those early attachments first form and what they do in the brain. We can come in actually because the brain is so plastic. It's, the term is neuroplasticity. So our brain is plastic. That's what I tell the kiddos. Your brain is plastic and it stretches. And they look at me like I'm crazy until I explain a little bit more. but it is a
I
really
never
fun
thought
way.
of it that way. That's so cool. I love that you use it. Yeah, that it can stretch this way and
Mhm.
that. It's not just like,
We think it's just stuck in there, but what actually
right.
happens is all of those connections and things can get they get changed, and we can have patterns that are really adaptive and useful in certain situations. And then later on, we can find out that that doesn't work so great anymore, and we can build new pathways. And so, what
Does-
TBRI is really great about is helping to help parents and caregivers. And we always joke that we use it on the dog. It's
yes,
just
you
a
do.
really great relational model to help form healthy relationships.
Does TBRI stand for something? Are they
Yes.
initials?
Yeah, it's trust-based relational interventions. So it's was originally developed by Dr. Karen Purvis and Dr. Cross in Texas Christian University, and then it's just kind of been making its way around um, to various, generally foster care, adoptive families.
You studied quite a bit of this. You have a TAC badge in this adoption. So, what are the different nuances that you learned in that?
So with TAC, it's training and adoption competency. And one of the things that's so great about TAC is that it's ongoing also. So as we learn more about, hey, this worked really well helping these adoptive kiddos um, thrive in families, and this was a little trickier. Here are the things that these kiddos um, face
Got it.
as they're coming to terms with their identity and how being adopted impacts them. There's no set way to be an adoptee, right? There is each
Mhm.
kiddo's individual journey and how they're impacted. And that's one of the things that is really helpful about TAC is we get an understanding about how, hey, these might be some of the things, but ultimately letting that adoptee teach us about what their journey was and how we can best support them. Because every adoption and every foster situation, right, begins with loss and grief. And
That's
being able to
right.
recognize that and support the whole constellation. So we're talking about supporting
That's
birth
right.
parents, we're talking about supporting adoptive parents and the families and the caregivers in all forms that come around and offer care and love to these kiddos. And then the kiddo themselves, right, being the kind of the center of it, and how do we center them in the story that's theirs and help them find their story in the way that they want to tell it.
Right. That how do we support the kiddo and also the support the adult who's put themselves in the position to foster or to adopt? I mean, do you use TBRI or is TBRI used on adults also? Is it only for children?
Usually what we'll say is you can only take somebody as far as you've gone yourself. So one of the great things about TBRI is it can help as parents are learning some of these tools, they can see places where maybe they didn't get that same attaching care in their own
Right.
histories, or where maybe things have been disrupted, and they can learn. So with TBRI, the way that we define like a healthy attachment is the ability to give care, the ability to receive care, the ability to negotiate needs, and the ability to be an autonomous self. And so it sounds simple and clear cut until you start to think about those times where when might it be hard to give care? When might it be hard to receive care? What happens when negotiating needs feels very, very terrifying, or as something that can't happen, where I cannot get my needs met, where someone's going to fail me, right? And then what does it mean to be autonomous? What does it mean to understand that it's okay that I have needs, that it's okay that I am who I am?
That's right. I'm okay who I am. And I'm trying to picture these little ones thinking that at age 2, at age
Mhm.
15, right? Like it's a
At age
lot.
55, as grown-ups, right?
Still,
All the way through the lifespan, this shows up
that's right.
again and again and again and again.
100%.
So it's those needs. That's why I always say I'm an attachment rich, trauma informed therapist, because I really want to understand how those early experiences inform people's decision making and people's choices. And understanding, one of the things that I think is so important to understand in trauma, is that our responses so often are protective, even when they don't make sense. And if we can start to make sense of how maybe this is one of the classic examples in infertility
Interesting.
being not wanting to go to a baby shower.
Right.
And then thinking about how that maybe leads to guilt. Maybe it leads to friends and family feeling like we don't care about them, like we're not excited
Like we're
for them,
selfish.
we're selfish, all of these things. So, what does the adaptive part become? Is that we close off more and more and more often. Not always, but often. And
Mm,
so, being able to understand, oh, how do I then negotiate needs? How do I become an autonomous self? How do I care for myself? How do I hold the space of being happy and excited,
right.
possibly, and also
Right.
really, really sad?
That's a lot of feeling, right? It's like they're your friend, of course you're happy for them, right?
Yeah.
But you can't negate, or you should not put aside your own feelings of what you're going through, all the turmoil. And you're right. It's you're allowed to have both.
Yeah. And it's so hard to live in that space.
To live and to
Hmm.
explain it, right?
Yeah.
To feel, and it's like you almost think that people should just know that, right? Like they know I'm struggling, that you're like, why do you even, but people don't know, right? If you don't say it, people don't know. People really don't know.
And a lot of times, I think people, in their own excitement, we've all done this, where we've been super excited about something and not considered outside of ourselves because we inhabit, I would say, we only live in our own skin. And sometimes it can
You're
be
right.
really hard to remember, oh, other people live in their own skins.
Yes.
And me being super excited about something or super frustrated by something, um, is my experience, and how might that butt up against somebody else's experience? And that's
Cool, Anna, how you created this support for those of us who have gone, who go through, who, however many years have passed, who are going through infertility. It's not the same when talking to a mental health therapist. It's not the same as talking to someone who's studied in it, who's been through it, who's going through it, who just listens differently, has different information, I should say, clinical information about what's going on in the infertility world. It makes such a difference. You were inspired by, in 2009, I believe you talked about how your husband was diagnosed with infertility, but I love how you say it as we, even though it's male factor infertility.
it impacted both of us.
That's
I
right.
remember Barb Kalura, who's the president, was the former CEO of Resolve, saying one time something that just has always stuck in my head, which is that it's the only disease that two people go through in the same way, right?
That's
Um,
right.
if not that people who are, I don't want to minimize at all how devastating cancer diagnoses and all of these other diseases can be as people go through it with support and caregivers, but it's the one that is medically impacting both, because both go through testing and diagnostics and sometimes treatment, right? If it's needing both people to be on medication and just all of the complexity that comes with it, it's a disease that involves two bodies,
Two
sometimes
bodies.
three or four, depending too, with surrogacy and different elements that come into it, right? Now that we've got so much with donor conception and things,
Yes.
it ripples in unique ways that just other diseases do not.
That's right. Can I ask, if did you and your husband have mental health practitioner during the time?
We did not.
Hmm.
So I've told the story a couple of times. I'm a pastor's kid, So one of my first thoughts was, well, you call pastors. And I ended up over a couple of weeks after our first failed IVF, calling several churches, and nobody called me back.
Oh,
I did ultimately find a support group in the church that was very helpful, but it was incredibly frustrating to have that. And then at some point, I did decide to go and see someone. And one of the things that she said to me was, well, so what if you can't have a baby? It's not the end of the world. And that was just astronomically unhelpful. But what
wow.
I remember getting from that, thankfully, was not like, oh my gosh, like anything on myself. It was, wow, she doesn't have any training. She has
Right.
no idea how to hold this, how to walk with me in this. So
When
that's
you I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but when you just said what she said, I was like, wait, is this a trick question? Is she giving you like a trick Zen quote here? Like, like that. I can't even believe she said that. I didn't know that was a fun fact about you. You're a pastor's child.
I'm a
That's so
pastor's kid.
cool. That's very unique. How many siblings do you have? Other siblings?
Yeah, I'm the middle of five.
Okay. Oh, I'm one of five kids too.
Woohoo!
Look at
What number are
that.
you?
I'm the youngest,
Oh,
but really I'm the oldest. Just kidding. Somehow I'm like, I'm definitely, that's not how I say it. I'm definitely the, I don't know what you call it. Maybe producer of sorts
mm-hmm.
of, like I'm the wrangler. I don't know what you call me, but,
I'll have to ask my sister who's the youngest if she ever feels that way, because I'm thinking she probably also would go, sometimes I'm the wrangler too.
but because you grew up with such faith and you went to knock on the doors of people that you thought were your mentors that were there, that was, guided by God, and they were not able to even like offer you, well, go this way or go that way or say anything. Like, how did like,
Oh, it was horrible. It was so isolating and frustrating, and it still happens sometimes where I'll see, a pastor who just isn't thinking about who, who's in the audience and says things. I was in a Bible study one time, and the leader said, "Oh, everybody in here is going to be a grandma someday." And I was like, "Oh, like you mean well, you mean so well, and you have no idea who's sitting in this room." So that piece of it has been always very challenging. I think anybody with infertility can share some story of feeling just that unseen, invisible, completely not even considered, right,
that's right.
space.
I think it's so important to know that, there's a difference between being child free versus, not by choice, right? There is a difference. There's a big difference between you choosing to be that way or you not having a choice but to
Yeah,
be this way.
yeah.
And to your point, not to minimize cancer or any other kind of disease, but certainly there's been more research and support in
Mhm.
the mental health sector in these fields, right? Whereas infertility, it's still sort of like a little bit of the wild, wild west in certain clinical areas.
Yeah. And I think it's something that's so hard to, and so one of the things I'll share from my story, right, is being a pastor's kid. Of course I was going to have kids. I'm one of five. Of course I was going to have, not only was I
Right,
going to have kids, it was going to be easy.
right,
And then
right.
I still have my Cabbage Patch doll. Um,
Oh,
to really age me, I
no, are
still
you
have my
kidding?
Cabbage Patch doll.
I still have my Cabbage Patch dolls.
And she looks like me. So
Oh,
there's a picture of me holding my Cabbage Patch doll that I got when I was like five, and she looks like me. And just to think, nobody was saying, hey, you're going to absolutely have to go off and have children. It was just there. It was part of my story and part of growing up. And then to not have it happen. We talk about ontological losses, which is just basically this idea that like this whole way of being, this whole understanding I had of the world just shattered. Child free versus childless,
Right.
right? And how a lot of times there's a lot of conversation happening around what types of people become child free, and the often those words get intermixed too, without understanding that it's a really broad umbrella. And nobody should be belittled or demeaned because of their parent status. That is something I think most of us would agree to, and yet it happens. Going back to, if you don't kind of self-assess and think through things and things, the inadvertent hurt that can come from that. And
If you
so I
don't
think,
self-assess, that's
yeah.
right. Because nurturing, you don't have to be a parent to be nurturing, right? That's an innate quality
Mhm.
that you can. There was like an easier way to foster someone. What if it was just like sort of like someone someone you grew
Mhm.
up with, right? Who's having a family where you're going to commit, I don't know, 1 or 2 days a month to this child, right? Like I commit to 24 hours. I commit to whatever it is, right? Where you are part of this person's life on throughout their entire life, like maybe it would require a contract, a legal contract, or maybe a contract signed by like your grandmother, but something to be like, I vouch to be here for you. It's like the ultimate godparent.
Mhm. Well, I think there's so many ways that if people want to, give to that next generation, that they can. We used to have a lot more of this collective sense, right? Of it takes a village to raise a kid, and we've gotten away from that. I'm not sure why. There's probably a multitude of reasons, into this nuclear family idea, which a nuclear family is wonderful, but it is a lot of work to have a job, to have a kid, to take care of a house, to do all of the things. And we put a lot of pressure on people to do these things. And I think
Right.
we could definitely kind of think about, like, how might we develop, whether it's a formal or informal relationship. I have 10 nephews and 3 nieces. Um,
Whoa.
and I
What
had
a
10 boys
blessing.
all in a row. So I will tell you that first niece, I bought more pink than I have ever bought in my life. I was so excited to have, and I love my nephews, love my
Oh my
nieces. They're
gosh, you have to
wonderful.
play with your Cabbage Patch doll with her. I'm sure you will.
Oh,
I'm sure you do.
she's gotten a little older and not as interested, so I took it
Ah,
back.
got it.
But she did get.
I want to circle back to your resume. You also did your licensure at the Trinity Counseling Ministries. So through there, you found a way to sort of do this with equine therapy also. Is that right?
I do canine. So my supervisor did equine because she had horses, and she has mini horses who are adorable. And we've done a
Got
couple
it.
of events where she's brought her minis and I've brought my dogs.
Oh my,
Her
what kind of clients get to have the canine therapy? All of them.
any
Everyone who walks
anybody who
in your
won't
door.
anybody who would like a dog can hang out with one of the dogs. I will say, with the especially the foster kiddos, who a lot of times just come from such tough backgrounds, having somebody who just gazes at them with nothing but
Oh,
love and admiration is healing in itself, right?
oh my God. Isn't that for everyone?
Yeah, I was to say, and isn't that what we all want, right?
We all want that.
The love beams.
The love beams.
My favorite story about Finnegan, being and why I love animal assisted therapy. We were at a soccer camp, and there were foster kiddos there, And I don't know their histories. I'm just there to hang out if they need a break, if they're getting overwhelmed. That's why the dogs and I are there. And one of the kids didn't particularly care to play soccer that day, so he was hanging out, spending a lot of time with Finn, and he kept leaning in towards Finn's face. And I said, "Oh, what you're telling him is that he's allowed to kiss you. So if you want kisses, you can lean in, but if you don't want kisses, if you just lean back, he won't kiss you."
Okay.
And watching that little boy lean in,
Lean in.
and then he'd lean out when he kind of was feeling a little overwhelmed or whatever, and to watch him do that and to realize he was learning how to navigate, right, near and far, and having somebody respect his autonomy in that moment. And I didn't have to do anything but sit and watch. It was very cool. I do wish I always say I understand why I cannot film those. But if everybody could just see that, it was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I was trying so hard not to cry because I didn't want the kiddo to be concerned about me. But
Right, right.
afterwards in my car, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was the most
I
beautiful thing
bet.
I've ever seen."
I bet. You used to be an elementary school teacher or a preschool teacher?
Both.
Both.
I have taught everything from newborns through third grade.
And then you switched over to mental health. Not necessarily inspired by that, actually. And now I know it's inspired by this lady who said the worst advice in the world. But I'm sure it inspired you working with all those kids all those years.
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't anticipate that I would go back to working with kids, because there was a time, a big part of why I left teaching was just how hard it got, as we were navigating infertility and the losses that we experienced. It just got really hard. And so I didn't anticipate working with kids again. And then little by little, been like, oh, actually, this is okay. This is a space
Right.
I can be in again. But it did take me working through stuff with my therapist, to be able to kind of get there and figure out how to navigate some of the challenges that can come sometimes watching kiddos who've been through harm, right? When we
I'm
want one so
sure.
badly, it can be very difficult.
I'm so happy to hear you have someone to talk to currently. I was going to ask you that. You said you didn't have it back then, but having the job that you have and still being on the journey that you are with your husband, yeah, it's just because you're not in the clinic trying doesn't mean that you're not still having those conversations and talking about it and thinking about it, and just a lot of post-traumatic stress
Mm-hmm.
also from the phases.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of diagnoses of PTSD, of depression, anxiety disorders, different things. Prolonged grief disorder can be something that comes up a lot, with people on this journey. So yeah, there's definitely, I tell people, I'm like, even if you think, hey, like, I think we're navigating it okay, find a support group, find a good friend to talk to, find somebody who you can say all of the things to. Definitely finding community and finding somebody, like that little guy found Finn, somebody who's gonna just sit there and let you be you.
100% grief disorder.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
hearing it, I'm telling you, I feel like I can connect with that.
Mhm.
I know what
Yeah.
that's what I was feeling. That's what I still wake up sometimes nightmares about. Like, I know I have my daughter, but just all the losses, right? Like everything that happened, everything I had to give up, I still go see. I think about how I'd have a 12-year-old right now, and like when I go visit her at her grave, some people might see that as like, oh, that's so sad. Like, why do you do that? Like, why do you do that? You know what? It's my space. It's my space to go and grieve And whether I'm sitting there crying or whether I'm sitting there having lunch, it's my space, you know? I can talk to her or not. Like I don't need to explain it to anybody. You know what I mean? Like, or do I?
No, I was it's the idea that we have a continuing bond, right? There was a bond that existed, that was formed, and then it changes. I think so often we think of it as severing or ending, and it certainly does feel that way. But what can grow out of that is the understanding that there's still a bond, there's still connection, there's still love. That's all still there.
It
Um,
is.
and then I tell people too, sometimes it's sad because it's sad.
It
Losing
is sad. It
a
is
baby
sad.
is sad. Losing a loved one is sad. Losing a dream is
A
sad.
dream.
All of those things, they are sad. And our natural response to that is grief. And it's been so stigmatized to grieve that we've kind of lost not only how to grieve as a culture for sure, but also how to support others in grief. Because we think, oh, you need to feel better. I need to make you feel better. And by
That's
making you feel conscious, I'm uncomfortable because you're uncomfortable. And nobody wants anybody to be uncomfortable.
100%.
And then that quick rush into, I'm going to make it better. And then when you can't make it better, how hard that is to hold.
Uh-huh.
And then as taking that step back and going, oh, that's actually what I need to do is just hold it. And
You're so strong to take on this job and help these young kiddos out and navigate all that you and your husband continue to do. Like it's here you're an advocate for Resolve and the American Society for Reproductive Medicine. And how many years have you been doing this now?
the first time I did a Resolve Advocacy Day was actually California State in person, which I think was 2019. Again, COVID. I've done federal every year since 2020 because it's been virtual. And I stepped into being a state captain because my favorite thing always is people being able to share their stories, because our stories matter. And so often, I always say this is my healing and my response to my story being shut down, right, is to make sure that other people have opportunities to share and to make a difference with their story, like you've gotten to experience, which is always so amazing to watch you share your story.
Oh my God, you're an amazing state captain. You guide us. Every year you guide us, you show us, you lead us, and you've been an amazing inspiration to me, Anna, honestly. Like I'm gonna do it again because of you.
I'm gonna do it again because of you. So it's a fun little attunement cycle going on right
That's
now.
right. And the empowerment that honestly you feel when the call is over and you're like, we did that, guys. Like all of it. What did we do? We were vulnerable with our stories and we talked about the loss that we have, not being able to have our families. This is what we're hoping that other people have a better opportunity than us. If it wasn't us, let it be them, let it be them, let us pay it forward, you know? Well, I am so grateful for you using this safe space to talk about your story. And yeah, you were not able to, but you know what? You're here. You're standing. You found other passions. You've got your beautiful 3 dogs. You're paying it forward with your business. I mean,
I always
what?
want people to know, because what I thought in the middle of my journey was, this is not survivable. This is not
Mhm.
survivable. I remember thinking that so many times. I remember thinking before going into our second transfer, if this doesn't work, there's nothing after. There's nothing. It's just a big, deep
God.
black hole of nothing. And it was so scary. And being able to come in then and say, you know what, it was a big hole. I'm not going to say that it was this wonderful thing when it failed and that I There wasn't deep grief and loss and frustration and anger and all of the things that I had to work through, but it wasn't as deep as I thought it would be. You mentioned, you'd have a 12-year-old. I will never also, not think about what could have been, what might have been, and grieve that. And it's okay, because it is sad that I went
It
through
is.
that. But that doesn't have to be where I stop, right? It's survivable, this disease.
Doesn't feel that good all the time. It might not always have the strength, but it is survivable. You may be able to hear more of these stories, more of these hard stories, right? The ones that don't necessarily have a happy ending, but they have an ending, right?
Yeah.
Hearing everybody be so brave, and everyone's so different and unique, yet they intertwine in some way. We all have been persistent, kept trying to do it,
And I always say it's the best worst club, because we don't want anybody else to come into this club. Absolutely nobody else. And yet, because it is a club that you find yourself in not by choice, it is so warm and welcoming when somebody says, "Oh, me too. I get it. I understand. I know how frustrating and disappointing it is when you don't get pregnant when you want to." And all of those pieces fall in. It is the best club that way, and it is the worst club.
The worst club with the best members.
Yep. That is us.
That's us. I'm so grateful for your time today, Anna. Thank you to you again on the show.
Yeah. Anytime.
That's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope to hear from you on any thoughts you have on anything we talked about today. You can check out more of these and similar stories on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok at mothersinarms.pod. If you take a few seconds, please, to rate this episode and like this channel on whatever platform you're listening on, thank you so much. It goes a long way to getting the word out on this little podcast. Thank you for your music, Adante Pascuso, and thank you at Pretty Podcast for all the magic. Until next time, friends, may the blessings stay with you.